Why is today's society collapsing?
People will be in handcuffs as a result of the fraud.
Official number of people experiencing homelessness in America, around 770,000.
We have a very corrupt country, and it's a sad thing to say.
We are living in a society where scams, corruption, and worse inequality have become not just common, but celebrated.
Forbes reports Musk's net worth at $726.3 billion, making him the world's richest person for a second straight year.
In one of my videos, I explained how COVID-19 have worsened wealth inequality, making the common man suffer because of the insatiable greed of the rich.
The combined wealth of the 657 billionaires in the country grew more than $1.3 trillion.
Greed, which was condemned by many religions.
Someone who's greedy wants more and is never satisfied. Someone who's stingy, they never want to release what they have.
Guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own.
A man of greed wants you to depend on him so he can extract money from you. A lot of so-called prophets today charge people money for ministry.
It's now the driving force of individuals, governments, and corporations, with no regards for the consequences for everyone.
Soaring gas prices, falling home prices, and rising unemployment.
This is a ticking time bomb. Society, as we all know it, is a large group of people living together, sharing culture, institutions, and interests. For example, the United States is a society because they share the same institutions like the Federal Reserve, which makes monetary policy for the economy. We also have the government, which makes the rules and regulation in order to run the country, and then the armed forces, which make sure that everyone abides by those rules and regulations made by the government. This pattern of arrangement is also similar in other societies around the world. But why is it that a society so organized in this way is still collapsing? Have these institutions failed in the role they play in society?
Axios reports that Gen Z has lost faith in America. Look at this, 57% say the country is moving in the wrong direction.
For you to understand what went wrong, we will take a look at how societies in the past collapsed, because history does repeat itself. I cannot explain each and every society in the past, but most of them followed the same pattern. First of all is currency debasement. Now, currency debasement is obsolete because nobody uses gold and silver coins as a medium of exchange. Currency debasement is the reduction of a currency's intrinsic value by lowering the gold or silver content in a coin. Let us say this coin is 100% gold. After debasement of maybe 50%, the coin is worth less than before. Now, it's half gold and half copper. This causes an increase in money supply because it will take a lesser amount of gold to produce more coins, which means more money to buy things. But the problem is that if money supply increases faster than economic output, in other words, what society produces, it will lead to inflation. But are you noticing something right now? This is exactly what the Federal Reserve does now. They print new money into circulation. Then as money increases more than economic output, inflation rises. But we call it currency devaluation instead of currency debasement.
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally. And we do that by buying treasury bills or bonds or other government guaranteed securities. And that actually increases the money supply.
Debt spiral. This is when the society keeps on repaying its debt. And in most cases, it will have to borrow more to repay the old debt. This is a vicious cycle. You can sustain it in the short run, but society will eventually collapse in the long run, just like others did in the past. Even the United States national debt has surpassed $38 trillion, and to make matters worse, the debt is still growing.
Even more concerning than that number is the trajectory of the national debt. I think it only took 2 months for us to get another trillion added onto when it crossed 37 trillion just a couple months ago.
Loss of productive capacity is another pattern. In this situation, society produced fewer goods than they did before. Now, this can be caused by inadequate infrastructure, weak human capital, or even poor institutional quality. But for society to survive, they will have to keep importing, especially basic necessities like food. But the question is, for how long will they keep importing? because if imports are far higher than exports, it can lead to social decay. This is when people start to lose their jobs, beggars everywhere, and a high crime rate, because people have to survive.
He has targeted many cities with Democratic mayors, alleging that rampant crime and harsh conditions warrant military intervention. But is Trump right in his claims that Democratic cities across the country are in need of his help?
Do you feel more or less safe in Britain than you did a few years ago? The latest crime stats are out, and the UK, well, unfortunately, it's a playground for criminals. Crime rose a staggering 14%.
Precedented, alarming and exhausting. New crime statistics show Victorian police are arresting more than 200 people a day.
Social decay is already happening in many societies around the world, and it can get worse if nothing is done about it. These are the patterns of societal collapse in previous societies, but something is missing, which is what exactly is the root cause of all these recurring patterns that led to societal collapse. Greed, an excessive desire for more of something. It could be anything like money, power, and knowledge. But wait, how is greed an excessive desire for knowledge? What you have to understand is that greed exists in each and every human being. It is your nature to be greedy. You can't do without it.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works.
The biggest problem we have in our culture is this perception, when you pursue your own self-interest, that you are somehow a villain.
The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus.
Let me give you an example. These are two people running the same kind of small business. One is Mr. John and the other is Miss Jane. This month, Miss Jane made a revenue of $50,000, while Mr. John made $30,000. Now, what do you think Mr. John will do next month? Will he just sit back and keep making $30,000 every month? The answer is obviously no. He will try to improve maybe his marketing strategy, sales, and other aspects of his business. What pushed him to improve his business is greed. So greed is not entirely bad. It depends on how you manage it. This also applies to all aspects of life, apart from business. For example, when a shopper is looking for the best bargain, it is greed. When an investor is looking to earn the biggest profits on his stocks, it is greed. When a farmer is looking to get the highest price for his produce, it's also greed. Everybody is guilty of greed. Even I myself. I create my videos to earn more, so I am greedy. Greed also plays a critical role in our economy because what drives the economy is spending, and for you to spend, you have to be greedy. Without greed, nobody would want to create a product because there is no reward, which is called profit. And if there is no product, there won't be jobs. So greed is good. Feelings of envy are a catalyst for greed. Envy is when you desire to have what others have. Remember Mr. John? He desired the $50,000 revenue made by Miss Jane, which then pushed him to improve. But why are people against greed? Is greed not the cause of fraud, theft, corruption, and deception? Religions around the world view greed as evil. I don't think they are focusing on greed itself, but on what people can do because of greed. The root cause of all the occurring patterns that led to societal collapse, from currency debasement to social decay, is chronic greed, a never satisfying greed. Even when goals are met, it wants more. This is an extreme version of greed, and it is very destructive. That's why we are having so many issues in this world, like climate change, caused by the increase of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane, resulting in crop failure, starvation, and desertification.
According to a new United Nations report, the devastating impacts of human-caused climate change are happening now.
The study from the UK's Met Office has warned that CO2 at current levels are incompatible with the target of keeping global temperatures below 1.5 degrees.
Two new climate reports found human-caused climate change turned up the heat for nearly 2 billion people this summer across the planet. Food insecurity caused by political corruption, land degradation, and land grabbing. Wealth inequality, where the richest man is worth almost $1 trillion. Demonizing greed will not solve these problems, but chronic greed should be addressed urgently before it gets out of hand.
2008.
I think this is the most significant financial crisis in the post-war period.
There are fears the sell-off will continue on Wall Street.
The 2008 financial crisis was a major worldwide financial crisis, but it was centered in the United States. It was a great example of what chronic greed can do, although it wasn't a full societal collapse because many institutions were still intact. In 1934, the US Congress established the FHA, which stands for Federal Housing Administration. The purpose of the FHA was to offer government insurance on mortgages in order to protect banks against losses on qualifying FHA-insured loans. In simple terms, when a borrower defaults on an FHA-insured loan, the bank will sell the house, but if there is any loss after selling the house, the FHA will pay for the loss. Later on, Fannie Mae, also called the Federal National Mortgage Association, FNMA, was established around 1938. The job of Fannie Mae was to buy mortgages, bundle those mortgages into securities, and then sell mortgage-backed securities to investors. This process is called securitization of mortgages. FedReMark, which does the same job as Fannie Mae, was created in 1970. Both of them were collectively called GSEs, which stands for Government-Sponsored Enterprises. But why create all these enterprises and agencies for the housing market? They were created in response to the housing and banking failure exposed by the Great Depression. During the Great Depression, very few people could afford mortgages and banks were not willing to lend because it was too risky. So the FHA helped to reduce lenders' risk, while GSEs helped to provide liquidity in the housing market. In the early 2000s, the government and GSE share of the mortgage market began to decline due to the expansion of the private securitization market, PSL. They were securitizing mortgages just like GSEs, but they became the main cause of the 2008 financial crisis. But if they were securitizing mortgages, why would you say they caused the financial crisis in 2008? Was the securitization different from that of GSE? Yes, it was. PSL deals with the securitization of subprime mortgages with predatory features. Subprime mortgages are made to borrowers who are considered higher risk than prime borrowers, meaning they have low income, poor credit history, or high existing debt. With such mortgages, it's almost impossible for the borrower to pay them back, but the borrower always had the option of refinancing, which is taking another mortgage to replace the old one. This created a bubble that eventually burst in 2008. What made PSL surpass GSEs was that they gave higher returns to investors for their subprime mortgage securities. PSL volumes increased from $148 billion in 1999 to $1.2 trillion by 2006, increasing the PSL's market share of total mortgage securitization from 18% to 56%. Even GSEs had to fill their own investment portfolios with subprime mortgage-backed securities for the sake of their stakeholders. It was a time of chronic greed. But you may ask, where was the government when all this was happening? Weren't they supervising the housing market to ban subprime mortgages? No, they were not. That was a failure on the part of the government. They only intervened when house prices started falling and defaults surged. They lowered interest rates, gave bailouts to banks to prevent total collapse, and took control of GSEs. Not all banks survived the crisis. Lehman Brothers, an investment bank, filed for bankruptcy because it was heavily invested in the subprime mortgage-backed securities. This was the largest bankruptcy in US history, over $600 billion in assets.
The U.S. government said it won't bail out Lehman, which last week announced more than $3.9 billion in losses. Shares in Lehman Brothers have plummeted more than 80% in 2008 alone.
The corporate world is more guilty of chronic greed because they all find new ways to increase profits and meet stakeholders' needs. Now, I'm not against a company trying to reduce costs for more profit, but it shouldn't be done while disregarding other people's welfare. Take for instance, a company that sells a product, and during production, waste needs to be disposed of. Instead of the company taking money from its profits to dispose the waste properly, they pour the waste into a river. This same river, which everyone in the community uses to cook, drink, and bath, is now contaminated. In the short run, the company makes more profit, but in the long run, the whole community suffers the consequences. You can also remember the 2008 crisis, when investors and banks enjoyed gains in the short run until everything eventually crashed. The original idea of capitalism, which is driven by greed, was to create an economic system where owners benefit in the long run by creating jobs for the middle class and the poor. In other words, owners keep earning profits while workers keep earning salaries. everyone is happy. But I don't think that kind of capitalism exists nowadays. Okay then, what is the solution? Well, the solution is not that hard. The government should impose more regulations on companies to force them to do the right thing, because time is ticking while society keeps collapsing. Before clicking off, I want to thank you for watching up to this stage. For you to do that, it means I have provided value to you. You can like and subscribe, share it with your friends and family. Thank you again, and goodbye.